Welcome to Whispers and Confessions. There might be a twist waiting, so please make sure to watch until the end. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Let's begin right away.
My name is Connor, a 34-year-old ordinary office worker with an unusual predicament. I find myself in the unenviable position of being distinctly disliked by my boss, Ms. Evelyn. From the moment we first met, she has treated me with an inexplicable coldness that I cannot fathom. Despite my best efforts, I remain bewildered as to why I've fallen out of favor without her knowing my personality or work abilities. If circumstances allowed, I would relish the opportunity to befriend Ms. Evelyn. She is an extraordinarily beautiful woman who, despite claiming to be approaching 40, possesses a youthful appearance that belies her age. Her striking looks align perfectly with my preferences, which only amplifies my disappointment at being disliked. I've entertained the notion that perhaps Ms. Evelyn harbors a general dislike for men, but this theory quickly unraveled as I observed her interacting normally and amicably with other male colleagues. In my quest to understand her aversion, I've pondered various possibilities. Could it be my appearance that offends her? Or perhaps I've unwittingly committed some faux pas in matters of personal hygiene. Despite my best efforts, I've been unable to pinpoint the root cause, leaving me without a clear path to resolution. Little did I know that an impending incident would soon dramatically alter the dynamics of my relationship with Ms. Evelyn. The pivotal day arrived towards the end of summer, with the lingering heat still palpable in the air. Rumors of an approaching hurricane had begun to circulate, and while a direct hit seemed unlikely, the potential for some form of impact loomed. At the time, I was residing in an apartment conveniently located adjacent to our company premises. Despite the absence of rain, I made the prudent decision to bring an umbrella to work, preparing for any meteorological surprises. The workday progressed as usual until, just before closing time, I committed a minor error. It was none other than Ms. Evelyn who discovered my mistake, her keen eye missing nothing. Even under normal circumstances, Ms. Evelyn never addressed me by name, a fact that only added to the tension of the moment. "This is incorrect. Please rectify it immediately," she stated, her voice devoid of warmth. "I apologize. I'll amend it right away," I responded, eager to make amends. "How much longer will you continue to make such elementary mistakes? This document must be completed today. That's precisely why I consistently emphasize the importance of thorough checking before submission," she reprimanded. While her words weren't overtly harsh, her tone was glacial, leaving me with little recourse but to apologize profusely. As this exchange unfolded, the workday drew to a close. Given that Ms. Evelyn and I were solely responsible for this particular task, our colleagues departed promptly at the end of their shifts, leaving us to resolve the issue. There's no alternative. With the weather potentially worsening, I need to complete this swiftly, I thought to myself. With this realization, I threw myself into the work with renewed vigor. Aware that Ms. Evelyn would need to review my revisions, I felt a pang of guilt knowing she too would be compelled to work overtime. After several hours of intense concentration, I finally managed to revise the document to completion, and Ms. Evelyn concluded her thorough review. At last, it's finished, I thought, a wave of relief washing over me. However, my sense of accomplishment was short-lived as I soon realized that the real commotion was only beginning to unfold. As I prepared to offer Ms. Evelyn one final apology before heading home, her voice suddenly cut through the silence. Fearing I might have committed yet another blunder, I anxiously inquired, "Is something amiss?" Evelyn sighed, checked her phone, and announced, "It's not about work. All public transportation has ceased operations due to the impending hurricane." "Is the hurricane responsible for this disruption?" I inquired, concern evident in my voice. "Indeed, it appears so," Evelyn confirmed. "Without the ability to transfer between subway and bus, I'm unable to reach my residence. I'll need to secure accommodation at a nearby motel for the night." She exhaled deeply, her frustration palpable. The realization dawned on me that had we departed at our regular time, this predicament could have been avoided. The weight of responsibility settled heavily upon my shoulders. Feeling culpable, I apologized profusely and immediately began assisting Evelyn in her search for available lodging. However, Our efforts proved futile as every motel in the vicinity was fully booked, their rooms reserved by others similarly stranded. Glancing out the window, I noticed the rain had begun to fall in earnest. The inclement weather ruled out the possibility of waiting outside, and the likelihood of securing an Uber in these conditions seemed remote at best. "This situation is becoming increasingly problematic," Evelyn muttered, her eyes fixed on her phone as she continued her fruitless search for accommodation. A thought occurred to me. My apartment was in close proximity and could offer shelter from the storm. However, the prospect of extending an invitation to Evelyn, who had consistently displayed a marked aversion towards me, seemed fraught with potential complications. And yet, her current predicament presented an opportunity to potentially bridge the chasm between us. After a moment of internal deliberation, I cautiously ventured, if it's amenable to you, would you consider staying at my apartment for the night?" As anticipated, Evelyn's eyes widened in surprise at my proposition. Hastily, I elaborated. "My apartment is just a short distance away. At the very least, it would provide refuge from the wind and rain." Evelyn's gaze turned suspicious as she questioned, "You're not harboring any inappropriate intentions, are you?" "Absolutely not," I responded without hesitation. "I assure you, my offer is purely out of concern for your well-being." Despite my earnest protestation, Evelyn's skeptical glare persisted. Her unwarranted hostility stung, causing a twinge of pain in my heart. I couldn't recall any transgression that might have engendered such antipathy. Her inexplicable animosity towards me remained a source of bewilderment and distress. If only she would elucidate the reasons behind her apparent disdain, perhaps it would provide some measure of closure. Despite my inner turmoil, Evelyn seemed to reluctantly conclude that my offer was her sole viable option. With visible reluctance, she acquiesced to my proposal. "I apologize for the imposition," Evelyn stated, her expression betraying her discomfort with the arrangement. "I understand," I replied, though a sense of melancholy permeated my response. The prospect of enduring this tense atmosphere until morning loomed large. Nevertheless, I clung to a thread of optimism, hoping that somehow the situation might improve. As we exited the office, we were immediately assaulted by the elements. Though the wind's intensity was moderate, the rain fell in torrents. Despite our umbrellas, we were swiftly drenched by the sideways lashing downpour. We navigated our way to my apartment in silence, the only sounds those of the storm raging around us. I found myself curious about Evelyn's expression, but lacked the courage to steal a glance. As we rode the elevator and approached my door, I studiously avoided meeting her gaze. "Welcome," I said, ushering Evelyn into my apartment. As she stepped inside, I couldn't help but notice her appearance. The rain had rendered her clothes sodden, clinging to her form in a way that, as Evelyn entered, her rain-soaked clothes clung to her figure, accentuating her attractive silhouette. Catching my inadvertent gaze, she admonished sharply, "Don't stare at me like that." Chastened by her cold glare, I promptly ushered her further into the house. "My apologies," I said contritely, offering her a towel and swiftly preparing the shower. As I adjusted the water temperature, Evelyn's complaints persisted. "Why must I endure this situation because of your error?" Her words, though not unfounded, stung. I yearned for even a modicum of appreciation for my efforts to assist her. A simple thank you would have sufficed. My frustration mounted as Evelyn's frigid demeanor persisted. I grappled with understanding her refusal to address me by name, and her peculiar coldness directed solely at me. As this uncomfortable scenario unfolded, a fleeting desire for minor retribution crossed my mind. However, guilt immediately followed this thought. If only Evelyn could comprehend my perspective, I mused, exhaling a weary sigh. While contemplating potential acts of petty revenge, the shower finally reached an optimal temperature. I guided Evelyn to the bathroom, providing her with a towel and shampoo. Hoping for a gesture of gratitude, I was instead met with another curt command, "Don't peek." At that moment, an impulsive idea materialized in my mind. "Peek? I wouldn't dream of it," I replied with a mischievous grin before exiting the bathroom. A reckless plan began to form. As long as I don't actually look, it's permissible, right? Once I heard the shower running, I hastily disrobed, deposited my clothes in the washing machine, and, in a moment of questionable judgment, blindfolded myself. Reasoning that this technically adhered to her instruction not to peek, I made the ill-advised decision to join her in the shower. Blinded by my misguided intent to surprise Evelyn, I failed to recognize the dangerous impropriety of my actions. With reckless abandon, I flung open the bathroom door, announcing with unwarranted enthusiasm, "Well, let's shower together." Evelyn's voice, tinged with shock and confusion, pierced the steam-filled air. Anticipating another scolding, I preemptively declared with smug satisfaction, "As promised, I'm not peeking." However, her response caught me entirely off guard. "Wait, what are you doing?" Evelyn stammered, her usual composure clearly shaken. Then, to my utter astonishment, she exclaimed, "Oh, it's substantial." Bewildered, I thought, "Huh? But it's perfectly average." Unable to discern her expression due to my self-imposed blindness, I sensed a distinct lack of rejection in her tone. It's not that impressive," I mumbled sheepishly. In retrospect, I recalled similar comments from past partners, which I had always dismissed as mere flattery. As silence momentarily enveloped us, I pondered the surreal situation. Suddenly, I felt an unexpected touch on my body. Initially attributing it to my imagination, heightened by sensory deprivation, I soon realized that a particular part of my anatomy was indeed being caressed. This unanticipated turn of events ignited a spark of excitement, and my body began to respond with increasing intensity. In that moment, all semblance of rational thought crumbled, giving way to a tide of unbridled passion. In the blindfolded situation, I felt an overwhelming desire to touch her. Despite my initial apprehension about her potential anger, she didn't reject my advances. Instead, her unexpectedly tender voice only heightened my excitement. As I grappled with the surreal nature of our predicament, I found myself unable to resist the urge to explore her body with heightened intensity. I yearned to remove the blindfold, but Evelyn's plea, delivered in a sweet tone that contrasted sharply with her usual cold demeanor, stopped me. "Not yet. Stay like that," she whispered. "But I want to see you," I protested gently. "I prefer it this way for now," she responded, sealing her words with a kiss. Her kiss was astonishingly sweet, and the softness of her breasts, which I could only imagine in my blindfolded state, further intensified my arousal. As we kissed, she continued to caress my manhood with a tenderness that sent waves of ecstasy through my body, unlike anything I had experienced before. Guided by touch alone, I traced kisses along her elegant neckline, slowly moving down to her chest. Her delicate moans resonated softly, mingling with the steam-filled air of the bathroom. In that moment, our other senses became heightened, allowing us to fully immerse ourselves in each other's breaths and body heat. The disconnect between Evelyn's current actions and her usual demeanor left me in a state of dizzying disbelief. Even in this sightless state, we became one in an instant. I held her close, my mind racing with images of what expression might be gracing Evelyn's face. As our first encounter concluded, her apparent dissatisfaction led her to continue her sensual exploration of my body. Unable to contain my curiosity any longer, I attempted to remove the blindfold. Evelyn blushed, gently chiding, "I told you not to look." However, the adorable quality of her voice compelled me to apologize with a kiss. "I'm sorry." Gone was any trace of her usual coldness. In its place was a disheveled Evelyn, irresistibly alluring in her vulnerability. Her soft lips and warm breath awakened every one of my senses, and I found myself tracing the smooth curves of her body with my hands. As I felt Evelyn's body responding to my touch, I realized I was falling even deeper for her. We hastily concluded our shower and made our way to the bed, the residual steam and heat from the bathroom clinging to our skin and further intensifying our desire. Our lovemaking on the bed surpassed even the passionate encounter in the bathroom. When I finally removed the blindfold and opened my eyes, I was struck by Evelyn's breathtaking beauty. Her naked form was far more exquisite than I could have imagined. The soft curves of her body, her smooth skin, and her faintly shimmering eyes captivated me entirely. The lingering steam from the bathroom gave her skin a slight sheen, adding to her mystique. Her breasts were full and firm, perfectly balanced and rising in beautiful, soft curves. The elegant line of her hips formed smooth, graceful contours that epitomized beauty. Every aspect of her was beautiful to the core, and I found myself holding my breath, overwhelmed by her perfection. I was utterly mesmerized by Evelyn's flawless beauty, which far exceeded anything I could have imagined while blindfolded. Our bodies moved in perfect harmony on the bed, the room filled with the sound of our intermingled breaths and sweet moans. After hours of passionate intimacy, we lay exhausted, catching our breath. Evelyn's hair was softly scattered across my chest as I gently stroked her back. Confusion set in as I pondered how this unexpected turn of events had transpired, given my belief that Evelyn disliked me. The sudden shift in her attitude and the intensity of our encounter felt surreal. I studied her face, searching for clues that might explain her previously cold demeanor. In this moment, it felt as though the wall between us had crumbled, leaving me with a mixture of anticipation and anxiety about the future of our relationship. Realizing that silent contemplation would yield no answers, I decided to address the issue directly. Was it okay to do this, even though you dislike me? I asked. She covered her face and replied softly, I just couldn't help wanting to do it. Interpreting her response as potential regret, I pressed further. What did I do wrong, Evelyn? If I'm going to be hated anyway, I'd at least like to know why. After a moment of silence, she began to explain. You didn't do anything wrong. It's because of my past, she said hesitantly. Your past? I prompted. I broke up with my boyfriend a few years ago. That ex-boyfriend looked too much like Connor. It was the first time Evelyn had addressed me by name. Not just his face and demeanor were similar, but his name was also Connor. So whenever I saw Connor, I was reminded of the past and couldn't treat him kindly. I didn't have good memories of that relationship. We dated for years, but just before marriage, I discovered he was cheating. I was devastated. I managed to continue working somehow, but Connor joined the company during that difficult time. Even though I knew it wasn't your fault, I couldn't help but be reminded of the past. That's why I maintained such a cold attitude. I'm truly sorry for behaving so terribly based on my own unresolved issues. Evelyn's expression was filled with remorse as she explained. That's why I've been treating you coldly and not addressing you by name all this time. Finally, the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, and I understood the root of her behavior. However, the catalyst for our current situation seemed to stem from a rather unexpected discovery. The stark difference between her ex-boyfriend and myself lay in a rather intimate area. To put it delicately, her former partner was significantly less endowed. Evelyn elaborated further, her voice tinged with a mix of emotions. My ex-boyfriend's appearance and demeanor were precisely my ideal type. That's why you, Connor, also appealed to me. Paradoxically, that's what I resented even more. I feared I might start developing feelings for you over trivial similarities. Yet simultaneously, painful memories of my past relationship would resurface, leaving me in a state of emotional turmoil. These conflicting thoughts consumed me. She continued, her cheeks flushing slightly. But you see, Connor, your physical attributes were so drastically different from my ex-boyfriend's that it caught me completely off guard. I found myself instinctively drawn to you. I'm truly sorry for acting on these impulses without considering your feelings. As I absorbed her confession, I experienced a whirlwind of emotions. While I felt a twinge of discomfort at being judged based on physical characteristics, I couldn't bring myself to harbor any resentment towards Evelyn. Her honesty and vulnerability were disarming. I'm actually relieved, I admitted, my voice soft. I was worried that I had somehow offended you, Evelyn. Truth be told, I've always wanted to forge a closer connection with you. Evelyn's eyes widened in surprise before she shook her head vehemently. You shouldn't forgive me so easily, she insisted. Everything I've told you, it's all my fault. I was projecting my unresolved feelings onto you, venting frustrations I couldn't express to my past self. I've been incredibly selfish. And you, Connor, You're so kind that you won't even call me out on my behavior. You shouldn't forgive me for repeatedly taking advantage of your kindness. It's okay to be angry with me." It became apparent that she had been grappling with these complex emotions in solitude, unable to confide in anyone. Now, finally unburdening herself, the weight of her confession seemed to overwhelm her. Moved by her vulnerability, I instinctively pulled her into a comforting embrace and tenderly kissed her once more. Evelyn gazed at me, her expression a mixture of confusion and wonder. I met her eyes, my voice gentle but firm. "I'm not angry, Evelyn. However, I can't deny that your cold demeanor has been somewhat disheartening. Moving forward, I'd like you to see me for who I am, not as a comparison to your ex-boyfriend. I promise you, I would never betray your trust the way he did." As I spoke, I gently ran my fingers through her hair, a gesture of reassurance and affection. Evelyn's eyes glistened with unshed tears as she whispered, "Yeah, I'm sorry." From that moment, it was as if a switch had been flipped. Her entire demeanor towards me underwent a remarkable transformation. In the aftermath of our heart-to-heart conversation, we made love once more, this time with a newfound depth of understanding and connection. As we finally drifted off to sleep, the ambiguous feelings that had plagued me for so long dissipated, leaving my mind at peace. The following day, being a holiday, afforded us the luxury of spending a lazy morning in bed. What might have been an ordinary day to some felt like pure bliss to me. Evelyn, who had previously maintained such a frosty exterior, now exuded warmth and softness. Her transformation was nothing short of miraculous, and I found her utterly adorable in this new light. The hurricane that had brought us together had indeed become a pivotal moment, dramatically altering the course of our relationship. We whiled away the hours until nightfall, indulging in multiple passionate encounters before Evelyn eventually returned to her own apartment. As the workweek resumed, I noticed a significant shift in Evelyn's behavior towards me. While she didn't display the same level of affection as during our intimate holiday, the icy wall between us had undoubtedly thawed. Our interactions became noticeably more comfortable and genuine. From that point forward, I made it a tradition to invite Evelyn over every Friday night, eagerly anticipating each opportunity to deepen our newfound connection. It appears the trains are operational again. Would you care to join me at my residence? I inquire, to which she responds with a subtle nod and a warm smile. Our relationship was blossoming beautifully. As the days progressed, approximately 2 months after the hurricane incident, I found myself utterly enamored with Evelyn. Fully cognizant of my feelings, I decided to express them to her without hesitation. Evelyn's response was heartfelt. "I'm deeply grateful that you've developed feelings for me, despite my initial cold treatment. Previously, I couldn't help but draw comparisons between you and my ex-boyfriend, but now I see Connor as a unique individual. Upon reflection, I've come to realize that you and my former partner are worlds apart. Your kindness, consideration, and other admirable qualities. It's clear now that the difference extends far beyond mere physical attributes. As a result, my affection for Connor has grown exponentially." She continued, her voice tinged with a mixture of vulnerability and hope. "There are still moments when anxiety about the past creeps in, but I have unwavering faith that Connor would never engage in such hurtful behavior. Despite my imperfections, I hope you'll continue to stand by me in the future." Evelyn conveyed these sentiments with a serene expression. The stark contrast between her current demeanor and her previous aloofness was striking, and her words alone filled me with immense joy. This marked the official beginning of our romantic journey. From that point forward, Evelyn and I continued to nurture our relationship. Her cold demeanor at work had all but vanished, leaving our colleagues astounded by the transformation. Time seemed to accelerate, and before we knew it, we had celebrated our first anniversary as a couple. Throughout that year, we managed to navigate our relationship without a single significant disagreement. There were occasions when Evelyn would become melancholic, haunted by memories of her past, but I made a conscious effort to be understanding and supportive. After all, the pain she carried was a result of her ex-boyfriend's actions, not her own. Determined to help her move beyond these lingering shadows, I committed myself to showering her with even more love and affection. As we worked in tandem to overcome the ghosts of her past, the idea of marriage began to take root in my mind. With meticulous planning and the utmost discretion, I orchestrated a proposal that caught Evelyn completely by surprise. Her reaction was one of pure, unadulterated happiness, her smile radiant through tears of joy. Evelyn's words were filled with gratitude and love. "Connor, I can't thank you enough for everything you've done. Your unwavering support, even when I'm haunted by my past, never fails to amaze me. You've never responded with anger, always choosing to accept me unconditionally. Your mere presence brings me immeasurable happiness. It's because of your steadfast love that I've been able to triumph over my past traumas. I implore you to continue being my rock in the years to come." The proposal was an unequivocal success. Shortly thereafter, Evelyn and I exchanged vows and embarked on our journey as a married couple. Even after the honeymoon phase, we continued to cultivate our love with the same fervor as when we first began dating. Before we realized it, 8 years had passed, yet our bond remained as strong as ever. Evelyn no longer found herself ensnared by the memories of her past. Now, I spend my days cherishing every moment with my adorable wife, my love for her growing deeper with each passing day. If this blissful, everyday life continues unabated, I'll consider myself truly blessed. As long as Evelyn remains by my side, I want for nothing else in this world. Our love story, born from adversity and nurtured through understanding and patience, stands as a testament to the power of genuine connection and unwavering commitment.